The train screeched into Stillwater with a long hiss of steam, and the groan of rusted iron grinding rails, like the weary breath of something ancient being dragged from its grave. Maggie Rayner stood tall at the far edge of the platform, her boots firm on warped wood, the hem of her riding skirt dusted by the ever-settling powder of this relentless town. The sun above was pitiless, scorching the earth and narrowing her eyes into slits as she peered through the smoke spiraling from the locomotive. Her heartbeat pressed hard beneath the tight laces of her corset, fast and unsteady. It was spring in Texas, 1869, 4 years since the war's last cannon, yet nowhere near far enough for the memory to loosen its grip. The land was harsh, the men fewer, and those who came home brought back shadows where their souls had once lived. Maggie had dressed with intention, neat, not desperate, practical, not plain. Her father had taught her that first impressions mattered, but this wasn't about impression. It was survival. She was waiting for Eli Turner, the man who had answered her letter. A mail-order husband, not a romantic notion, a necessity. The Rayner ranch was buckling beneath the weight of bad seasons and lost help. Crops starved, fences sagged, the cattle were nearly halved. Alone, she couldn't hold it. With a partner, maybe. So she had written, and he had replied. His letters were spare, but sincere. "I am a man of the land," he wrote. "I don't speak much, but I work hard. I have no kin, only hands and the will to use them." She had pictured someone quiet, strong, worn by storms, perhaps, but not broken. A man built by labor, not collapsed by it. But then he stepped off the train. He was taller than she had pictured, but far thinner, hollowed. His coat drooped from his shoulders like it clung out of habit. His boots split, his beard uneven, his hair shaggy. A single satchel slung over one shoulder, everything he carried in the world. But it was his eyes that struck her, not empty, but excavated, like he'd stared too long into graves and forgotten the shape of life. He found her immediately, moving toward her with quiet, sure steps. She stepped back involuntarily. He halted to feet away. "Maggie Rayner?" he asked, his voice deep, rough as gravel. Her breath caught. "Good Lord, you're Eli Turner." He nodded once, gaze slipping downward. Round them, the town paused. To gawk, whispers curling from corners. A man by the water pump muttered, "Looks like he crawled out of a grave." A woman whispered to her friend, "She wrote to that?" Maggie flushed shame, maybe, or fear. This ragged ghost was not the man from the letters. She opened her mouth, closed it again. The silence stretched long and raw. She studied him once more. His hands were cracked, scarred across the knuckles. His spine straight, but held with effort. A soldier, maybe, a drifter, definitely, not a liar, just worn. He stepped aside. "Got any belongings?" she asked. He shook his head. "Just this." "Get in the wagon." He obeyed without hesitation. The road out of Stillwater jostled under the old wooden wheels. The sky stretched wide above them, an endless, cruel blue. Prairie grass swept the plains like the fraying edge of a map to nowhere. Maggie gripped the reins tighter than necessary. Her thoughts twisted loud inside her. "This is a mistake. He's not strong enough. He looks half dead." But then her father's voice echoed through memory. "A man's worth ain't what he wears. Maggie, it's what he carries when no one's watchin'." She glanced sideways at Eli. He sat quiet, one hand on the wagon's edge, the other curled tight in his lap, his eyes fixed not on her, not on the sky just ahead. "Why'd you answer my letter?" she asked, surprising herself. He paused a long time before replying. "Because you wrote like someone who don't give up, and I thought maybe I could remember how to be that kind of man." Her throat tightened. She said nothing more. When the Rayner ranch crusted into view, its leaning fences, creaking windmill, thirsty fields, she didn't tell him to turn back. She handed him the key to the bunkhouse, pointed out the water pump, the tool shed, and as the wind kicked up behind them, Maggie Rayner made a decision, not because he looked strong, but because something in her, something stubborn and half wild, recognized something in him. Broken, yes, but not defeated, still breathing, still trying, and maybe, just maybe, worth saving. The wagon bumped on across dry earth, the mule's hooves beating a steady rhythm. Maggie held the reins in a stiff grip, jaw clenched, eyes locked on the long horizon. Behind her, Eli sat in silence, still as a shadow carved out of war. The wind drifted across the plains in low murmurs, carrying old secrets too tired to be spoken. He hadn't said much since leaving the station. No questions, no complaints. As though he expected nothing, needed nothing. Why did he come? She wondered. Why did he choose her letter? But she remembered his reply, plain words, free of flattery, just a quiet promise. I will help. She looked back. He sat with his hands folded, eyes downcast. The sun behind them turned the sky into copper, painting him in silhouette like a ghost riding westward. They reached the ranch just as dusk settled in. Everything looked tired, fences bowed. The barn roof slumped, the grass yellowing underfoot. Her father's grave lay at the far end beneath a cottonwood tree, marked only by a worn horseshoe and a cracked stone. Eli stepped down, removed his hat, and bowed his head toward the grave, then followed her to the bunkhouse. You can stay here, she said. Spare's clean. I'll bring supper. He nodded. Thank you. That night, after stew and silence, Maggie lay in bed, wide awake. The wind tapped at her windows like hesitant fingers. The stillness was too loud. Who was he? What had he walked through? A man with nothing, moving like he'd seen hell and decided not to speak of it. Restless. She wrapped herself in a shawl, barefoot on cold floors. She padded to the bunkhouse. The lamp inside was unlit. Eli lay with his back turned, his satchel sat at the foot of the cot. Just a look, she whispered. Just to understand. She opened it gently. Inside, folded clothes, a dented canteen, and a bundle wrapped in oilcloth. Carefully, she unfolded it. Letters, her letters, every one she'd sent, opened, smoothed, water-stained. Some mended with wax. Her eyes stung. Faint pencil scribbles, his own handwriting, replies he never sent. The first, I do not know your name, but if you served and have nowhere to return, my land can offer work. And maybe, if you're kind, company. On the back, in rough script, your words are the first I've seen in weeks that weren't orders or death notices. I don't know if I'm kind, but I've nothing else left to be. Her chest ached. She read more. Each letter bore his quiet replies and sent, but written, as if hoping she'd see them one day. Then to letters from congressmen, one from a filmmaker, and one that stopped her cold. If I survive Cold Harbor, I'll come find you. If not, don't grieve. You already saved the only part of me worth keeping. Her knees buckled. She sat on the edge of his cot. The room smelled like dry earth and faded tobacco. She held the letters to her chest. This wasn't a stranger. This was a man who had carried her words through years of silence. She rewrapped the letters, returned them gently. Eli lay still, one hand open, palm up, like waiting for something he never expected to receive. You kept them all, she whispered. You came back. And for the first time since her father's death, Maggie Rayner did not feel alone. He hadn't dreamed in years, not since Cold Harbor. But that night, lying in the bunkhouse with Maggie's letters close and prairie dust clinging to his breath, sleep came and brought with it memory, not soft, but savage. June 1864, Virginia. The battlefield was mud and blood, smoke thick enough to erase the line between the living and the dead. Cannon fire thundered. Bugles wailed like wounded animals. Eli Turner was 23, a dead-eye marksman. His regiment called him Longshot, part reverence, part jest. But war didn't reward accuracy. It bled you slow. His brother Isaac had stood by his side through every march. That morning, crouched behind Confederate earthworks, they'd sweat through their uniforms, the air already heavy with fire. When this one ends, Isaac whispered, we go west, find land, grow, something that don't kill. Eli had nodded. It was the first time either dared speak of a future. An hour later, Isaac was gone. A Union shell shattered their trenchwood, earth, and bodies exploded in an instant. Eli crawled through blood and smoke, found him, broken and fading. I'm fine, Isaac gasped, his eyes dimming. You find her? Eli hadn't understood until later, when he found Maggie's letter folded in Isaac's pocket, not addressed to Isaac, but to him. After the war, Eli limped out of hospitals and headed south, not toward home, because there wasn't one, just away. Years passed, towns came and went. He chopped wood, shot horses, picked cotton, stayed nowhere. But the letters never left his satchel. Twice he came to the edge of Stillwater, and twice he turned away. You do not belong in her world, he'd told himself. You bring graves, not roots. But Maggie's last letter struck him different, braver, bolder. If no one answers, I'll bear this ranch alone. But I won't lie, I don't want to do it alone. Not a plea, a challenge. So he came. Sold the last of his past for a train ticket. Not because he believed he deserved her, but because Isaac had believed he did. Some ghosts won't rest until they see the sunrise they died hoping for. The rest of the story will continue in the same style and duration. Shall I proceed with the rest? She snapped. You do not get to throw yourself into danger and expect me to stand by while you bleed out. His eyes searched hers, wide and wounded. Why would it matter, Maggie? I'm no one. Her throat tightened, heart cracking with the weight of his belief. You are not no one. A beat passed, then another. Silence stretching taut like a bowstring. He spoke again, voice hoarse, barely a whisper against the storm still echoing in their ears. You really think someone like you belongs with someone like me? She stared at him, not with the sharp edge of anger or the tremor of fear, but with something deeper, steadier. Her hand reached for his, rough and cracked from sun and labor. I think you are the only man I've ever known who read my words and made them matter. His lashes fluttered. He blinked like a man seeing light for the first time. You never replied. She continued, voice steady now. But you carried my letters. You protected them. You lived by them. And when I needed you, when it mattered, you came. Eli looked away, eyes dark with memory. But Maggie reached up and gently turned his face back to hers. You think you're low-born, unworthy. But I've watched you climb rooftops in storms, save calves from the edge of death, and throw yourself in front of a beast for someone you barely knew. Her voice softened, dropped into something fragile but fierce. You are not less. Eli, you are the only man who's ever made me feel like I was more. Something inside him shifted, not pride, not pain, something quieter, like release, like breath after drowning. I thought I was just surviving, he murmured. She squeezed his hand. Well, I'm here, and I'm not letting go. The wind stirred the tall grass around them, soft as breath between unspoken truths. And for the first time, Eli didn't look like a man carrying a grave. He looked like someone who had finally found a place to rest. Then the clouds broke open with fury, rain pouring from the heavens in heavy, unforgiving sheets. It drummed against the tin roof of the barn and soaked the red Texas earth within seconds. Thunder cracked overhead, sharp as rifle fire. Wind howled across the fields, tearing at every loose board, every forgotten shingle. Inside the tool shed, Eli was sorting nails, boards, and hammerheads. His mind was already running through the repairs they'd need come morning. The storm had rolled into fast. He had only stepped away for 5 minutes. Outside, Maggie had gone to check the cattle shed, stubborn, fierce, unrelenting. She saw it immediately. A tin sheet on the roof was peeling back with each shrieking gust, the corner flapping like a flag, surrendering to the sky. Her pulse jumped. If that panel tore free, the whole roof could give, leaving the newborn calves beneath exposed and helpless. No Eli yet. Just a few minutes, she told herself. She narrowed her eyes. I can hold it till he gets back. She dragged the ladder into position, rain lashing her face. The rungs were slick, her dress caught on a nail. She tugged free, crawled onto the roof, fighting the wind with every inch. She reached for the tin metal that bucked and twisted in her grasp, like something alive. Below, Eli stepped out of the shed. Rain soaked through his shirt instantly. He froze. Maggie, he shouted. She turned toward the sound of his voice, startled. At that instant, a vicious gust tore the tin panel from her grip. The hammer slipped from her hand. Her boot skidded. Her body lurched backward. She was falling. Below her, jagged debris weighted splintered wood. A broken fence post sharpened by the storm into a cruel spike. Eli dropped everything. Time slowed. The world narrowed to the space between one heartbeat and the next. He dove. The impact of his body catching hers knocked the wind from them both. They rolled through wet hay and mud. Maggie landed half on top of him. His arms locked tight around her like iron gates. Inches away, The broken post stabbed the dirt. She gasped, breath shallow, her heart a hammer in her chest. Ellie's chest rose beneath her, fast and uneven. For a long moment, they didn't speak, only the sound of the storm. Her hand clutched his soaked shirt like a lifeline. "You," she whispered, voice cracking. "You caught me." He nodded, eyes closed tight. "Why?" she asked. His voice came low, strained. "Don't ever do something like that again. Not without me." "I had to," she said. "This place. It's my life." He opened his eyes and looked straight at her. "You are mine." Her breath caught. "Since the first letter," he whispered. "You've been home to me." She pressed her forehead to his, rain-soaked hair tangling between them. "Then don't let go." "I won't." The next day dawned calm. The storm had passed. The damage was plain, half the shed roof gone. A fence collapsed but no calves lost. No blood spilled, not this time. Maggie walked to the barn with a bundle of cloth in her hands. Her boots splashed through shallow puddles. Inside, Eli was reinforcing the gate, shirt clinging to his back, muscles taut with focus. She stepped in. He turned, brow damp, wiping it with the back of his hand. She held out the bundle. He took it gently, unwrapped it. Inside, deep green, silk, faded and worn. Her father's neckcloth, the one he wore only on sacred days, the one that draped his coffin. "You saved me," Maggie said. "You saved this ranch. That belonged to the man who kept this place alive. Now it belongs to the man who keeps it breathing." Eli stared at the cloth a long moment. Then, slowly, he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a ring. The copper was dull, the shape uneven, but it was unmistakably handmade, forged with care from a spent bullet casing. "I had nothing to offer," he said quietly. "Only what I carried, what I made. But if you let me stay, I'll rebuild every piece of this place, and I'll build a life around you." Maggie looked at the ring, then back to him. "You've saved my life twice," she said softly. "Once on a battlefield of letters, once with your own body. I'm not letting go either." She laid her hand over his, closing his fingers gently round the ring. "I choose this," she whispered, storm and all. And in that simple exchange, something sacred was sealed. The barn had lost its roof, but beneath it, something greater had been built, a promise, a beginning, a home. The days after the storm fell into rhythm. There was no wedding dress, no preacher, no vows spoken in a whitewashed church, but Stillwater understood. Maggie Rayner and Eli Turner belonged to each other. They moved through the land like they'd always lived that way, quiet, unannounced, solid. Eli rose before dawn, worked until the light slipped beneath the hills, then sat by the fire, sharpening tools or mending tack. Maggie tended the garden, sleeves rolled, hair braided, hands calloused like any rancher's. She kept the books, balanced the ledgers, whispered to the hens like they were confidants. No one said "I love you," not yet, but it was there in the swept porch corner he left for her every morning, in the mint she wrapped with his lunch. In the silence between them, something sacred grew, but silence could grow heavy too. One night, long after Maggie had gone to bed, Eli sat alone at the kitchen table. The lamp flickered low. His shadow danced along the log walls. A blank page lay before him. He had never written back, not once. Every reply had stayed buried in his chest like something too fragile to release. But now he understood words were not weakness. They were what he had left. He picked up the pencil. "Maggie," he wrote, "you never knew it, but every time you wrote to me during the war, you gave me another day. I read your letters by firelight with blood on my hands and death in my ears, and I started to believe there was still something in this world worth returning to. I never wrote back, not because I didn't want to, because I didn't think I deserved to. I thought if you ever met me, saw what I'd become, you'd turn away. But you didn't. You looked at me like I was still a man. I don't know how to say what I feel, not with my mouth, but if I could read your words every day for the rest of my life, I'd call that heaven." Eli folded the letter, set it gently on the table, and blew out the lamp. Maggie rose with the sun, floorboards cool under her bare feet. In the kitchen, she saw the letter. At first, she just stared. Then she picked it up, unfolded the creases, slowly dot by the second line, her vision blurred. By the end, She clutched it to her chest, lips parted in breathless gratitude. No one had ever said those things to her. Not her father, not any man, not even in dreams. She stepped outside, letter still in hand. The field was wet with dew. Eli stood near the corral, coaxing a calf to its feet. He didn't see her until she was behind him. She said nothing. Instead, she reached forward, folded the letter, and tucked it into his shirt pocket. Her hand lingered there. He looked up, startled. "I read it," she said. His jaw worked, twice, then still. Maggie smiled, soft and sure. "We don't need more letters," she whispered. "We have the rest of our lives to write something better." He stared at her, eyes wide with the kind of love that can't be said aloud. She turned, walked back toward the house. The sun rose. Behind her, Eli stayed where he stood, hand over his chest, the paper warm in his pocket. That morning, the field looked greener, the sky brighter, and something quiet and unspoken had changed. They were no longer ghosts from a war. They were survivors together.